Hey guys, Janet here, aka Game Honestess, and today we are talking about why the GameStop haters are wrong. So I'm going to break down the four main categories that people kind of go back to when they're talking about their hatred of GameStop and why it sucks and all of this kind of general bashing. But before we kind of get into that, I want to talk about why I'm doing this video to begin with. Most of you guys probably know that GameStop is kind of having a hard time financially right now. There are rumors suggesting that a buyout of GameStop can happen as early as mid-February. Now, that doesn't mean that the stores are going to instantly close down if that were to happen, but it does mean that the future of GameStop is in question, like whether or not it will continue to exist. It's a definite possibility that it could just be gone completely. And one thing I'm kind of hearing a lot in the wake of this news from the community, people on Twitter, etc., is just like a weird hateful joy that it's closing, like people that are just really psyched that it's going to be gone. And first of all, I find that weird to begin with because, if you don't like GameStop, you don't want to shop there, I think, that's fine, do what you want with your money. But it seems weird to be happy that it's closing because even if you don't like it, it is removing an option that gamers have to buy video games. Also, it's the only retailer that specializes in new and used games from the modern era. Obviously, there are like small used retro stores and things. So it seems weird for anyone to think that that kind of store not existing would be good for gamers. I don't really know exactly where that logic comes from. I did have a few people tell me that maybe if it's gone, some small businesses can rise up and fill that gap. That's not going to happen. You guys can kind of look further into that if you're curious, but I mean, it's kind of a common sense thing. Small business owners, there's a reason mom and pop shops and video game shops that are small do retro games. There's not really a way to do new games at that scale. And that's kind of one of the reasons that GameStop pushes their used game selection so much. There's not as much profit in new games. And if you're a really small business, they don't really give you a big discount on those games because you're not buying them at the volume that would really warrant it. So you make almost no money on it. You still have to, it just is not profitable. So that's not going to happen if you think the big corporation's going to come down and others will rise up. That's just not realistic. So if GameStop does go, nothing really will replace it. And for that reason, I don't think it makes sense to be happy it's closing. Also, people work there and have jobs there, and it would suck for them not to have their jobs anymore. But that's not really the, main topic at hand. I just kind of want to get that out of the way because that's a big thing I'm seeing. So no matter how you feel before or at the end of this video, I just feel like that's, very misguided and kind of hateful to be cheering on it closing. If you don't care that it closes, I think that's kind of short-sighted as well, but hey, whatever. But to be that's weird. So you shouldn't do that. It's not a good look. But let's get into the main topic at hand, the four categories that people kind of go back to for complaining about GameStop. First is, of course, the trade-in jokes. So I gave my whole collection, I got $2.25. So, I mean, anyone that's actually traded into GameStop should know or does know that's just not the reality. Obviously, I know those jokes, it's exaggerating to be funny, but it just really is not the case. And you hear those jokes too if you work at the store. I worked seasonal for GameStop one holiday season a few years ago, and it's really annoying because it's based on what the game is worth. So for instance, I just looked these up right before I did this video. If you give them NBA Live from 2015, that's 75 cents because it's a seasonal release from 2015 and it's 2019. It's not worth anything. They're probably not even going to sell it. When it's really old, they don't even take it because it's just not, no one who's buying that game. No one's buying that game. Probably why you're getting rid of it also. But if you trade in something that's way more modern, like Mario Party goes for $30 trading credit right now. If you trade in something that's kind of old but still sort of relevant, like the Minecraft version, Minecraft for the Wii U, that's $12, which, right, it's not as much as you paid for it, but it's a decent amount of money. It's not the, $2 everyone jokes about for, 80 games. Also, they can't give more to make a profit. When you sell to someone directly, the transaction's over. GameStop's essentially a middleman for actually completing that sale to someone. Also, I never really understood the logic of being mad at what someone offers you for the stuff that you don't want anyway. And, of course, you can always sell from, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, wherever, if you want to get more money that badly. But then you have to do the work of finding that customer yourself, and you see how this is all getting. You got to do the shipping if you're shipping it. Even in you selling yourself, there can be additional fees or just amount of time it takes you. And for all those reasons, I just, that's the classic one people always cite, and it's super misguided and kind of just ridiculous to me. So those are the reasons that I feel like it doesn't hold water on that argument. The other one is that GameStop's not hardcore gamers. They don't love games. They don't know games. And this comes from a couple different areas. One of the things people cite is the fact that, maybe they have an anecdote or from either as a customer, or maybe they work there and they're like, oh, some of the employees don't know anything about games, blah, blah, blah. But like at the end of the day, I mean, it is just a retail job. Like they do specialize in games, but it's a retail job. Like you don't need to necessarily be a hardcore gamer to do that job. Like you're just kind of working at a store, and that's it. It does help if you know more about games, and most people working at GameStop like games, because or else they might have probably just gotten a different retail job, so yeah, sure, maybe they don't know as much as but so what? Like it's not that big of a deal. I find that usually they're fairly knowledgeable. They either are like really passionate fans, or I mean, you still have to get a certain level of training, like know when the releases are coming out, know the differences between certain hardware. Like you kind of learn on the job more and more about it. So yeah, maybe someone you talked to didn't know everything or didn't know as much as you hoped or expected. But let's face it too, at the end of the day, they're more likely to know about games than someone working at Target, which is just a huge retail store with like, a bunch of different sections, and one of those sections happens to be games. Like they're probably not an expert in any of those departments that are in Target, because Target's so big. Like you can't be like a clothes expert and a makeup expert and a grocery expert and an alcohol expert. Like that's too much to ask of someone. At least at GameStop there's a chance of them being a gamer, and that's chances way less likely at like a Target, because it's just a Target. The other thing people say is that they're not as into games because they're selling all those Funko Pops. Like it's just another way for them to make money. Clearly, they're struggling to make money. So, they're doing what they can to stay profitable and kind of, keep the business going as long as they can. And also, the stuff's game-related, so I don't know. That's kind of a weird one. The other one is that they throw out their game cases. Like, when they get a trade-in, they, like, toss the case, and they're like, well, that's just a space issue. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with how much the company likes or doesn't like the cases. And the reality is, a lot of the customers coming in don't care that their used game doesn't have a proper case. They're just excited to get the game at all and to get it at a cheaper price. And that's kind of it. I know sometimes people get mad too that they like open up new games and put one of the cases to display, but like if you don't have it displayed in the store, people will forget that you have it. Like a lot of customers take the display case off the wall and bring it to the counter when you really don't have to do that. Like all the games are behind the counter or in the back. So that just kind of also speaks to the fact that having those on display is really important. But those are kind of the big things that people mention. Sometimes when people work there, they feel salty because, maybe they were really passionate about games and they had like these suggestions and ideas for the business that weren't like taken seriously. But once again, it's just like it's a massive chain retail store like that needs to be profitable. Like there's a lot of other moving parts besides it just being like about loving games. Like it's a business, it's a job, and it needs to be kind of approached that way. So that kind of speaks to some of their practices too that people might not be a fan of, but at the end of the day, I mean, it is a business that needs to be profitable. The other thing that people mention a lot is that the pre-orders and the warranties and kind of all that extra, like, hey, like, would you guys want to buy this thing? Like, kind of the extra spiel that you have to hear at the counter or on the phone if you call them. If you ask them about pre-ordering, they are more likely to pre-order because they might not know about a certain game coming out. You might be able to add. That's kind of is where that expertise comes in handy, like that extra insight to, sell more for the company. That's kind of it. It's just a level of customer service. And some customers will be annoyed by it, and I never get a warranty on any of my games, but I mean, that's just, if you don't ask them, they probably won't suggest it, or they won't necessarily suggest it unless they came there specifically to pre-order something. And the last thing that people talk about is sort of like conspiracy theories about the stock or rumors about how they handle their stock or how they handle their used versus new games. So everyone knows that they make more money off their used games and that they really try to push their used games. That's why they want you to trade in. They want you, they want to kind of keep this going. And when I say circle of life, that's like GameStop's policy with their employees, where you're kind of expected to sell a certain percentage of used merchandise versus new merchandise. Like it's more valuable for you to sell used stuff than new stuff or to get trade-ins. So they kind of like show you that percentage, and your goal is to have like a certain percentage at the end of each day. But that's kind of led people to say that, oh, like they're gonna lie to you, they're not gonna sell you a new game. Yes, for a new game, they're gonna like refuse or lie and say their inventory is different. And I'm sure if you look far enough, and there have been stories on the internet, articles done that say, yeah, that's true, it happened to my store, my boss told me to lie to everyone. I'm sure that does happen in some places just because the world is big. But having like worked there myself, and also just from common sense, like at the end of the day, you want to keep the customer happy and to sell products, and you already bought the new games, so it's not like you can't just like, it's not like you were given them and you make a lot, like you ordered those. Like you need to sell all of your merchandise to keep making money and to get more stuff into the store. So like even if a manager were suggested, it wouldn't make any sense, because I mean, why don't you just work harder on selling the used games rather than try to like decrease the sales of the new games? That wouldn't make any sense. And there's also other ways that you could fudge those numbers that is less janky. Once you get to a certain percentage, just maybe get off of the register and do a different job. Like it's not that difficult to try to get those numbers up, and and that's the whole reason that they ask about the pre-order thing. Like they wouldn't be pushing that kind of stuff if they were just like, the whole point of incentivizing or trying to push the employees to sell more used products is so that more used products get sold. It's not so that you hide the new merchandise. I mean, if they really didn't want to sell anything new, they just would stop buying new products. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense to do that. So I feel like it's kind of a weird one. Sorry for the visual changes here. I had to go back in while editing to do the outro for this because for some reason my audio cut out. But those are the 4 main categories people tend to lean on when discussing their hatred of GameStop. Hopefully this video was able to show you guys some strong counter arguments to all of those things that people tend to bring up when discussing why they don't like GameStop or why they are happy to see it be coming to an end. I do have a part 2 of this video where I discuss in a lot more of an informal way the things I really love about GameStop and things that I really enjoy. So definitely check that one out after watching this one, and let me know in the comments below what you guys think of GameStop. Are there things that bother you that maybe I didn't fully address in this video, or things you kind of want to discuss? Definitely let me know. I always check the comments, always reply. And as usual, guys, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and I will see you guys here next time. Bye.